This is the Dreadful Podcast on TV Podcast Industries. We're talking about Penny Dreadful, City of Angels, Episode 8, Hide and Seek.
Look, we may disagree on the route of the damn motorway, but that doesn't mean...
Call it what it is. It's not a motorway. It's social engineering. First the Mexicans, then who? You're not building roads, you're building prisons for all those you don't like. Until all that's left are rich white men who look and think exactly like you. No, sir.
You can spout the New Deal line as much as you like. But you better know, I got some very dangerous friends. You don't want to monkey with these fellas, believe you me, because they...
Isn't that queer? You're familiar with that term, Charlton? Thought you might be. Watch your back, Councilman. We old liberals still got a few teeth in our head.
Welcome back, fellow Penny Faithful. This is TV Podcast Industries. We're talking about Penny Dreadful, City of Angels, Episode 8, Hide and Seek. I'm one of your hosts, Derek.
I'm one of your hosts, Chris.
Yes, welcome back, fellow Dreaders and Penny Faithful. It's great that you're not going anywhere, and don't be afraid, just because it's now the hour when we go to the Black Chapel, a place of fear and terror with the hooded figure, which is probably Frank on trick-or-treat night. I am one of your hosts, John.
Excellent. Yes, I like that. That was a really cool little radio show they were listening to.
It was very cool. Yeah. I could listen to that all day.
You can tell why the kids were really addicted to it. They were sitting in the room all set up for the evening, looking to listen to some stories from the Black Chapel. It was very cool.
I want to listen to more.
Maybe we'll get more in the future. Maybe they'll do a spin-off series of the radio shows from the Black Chapel.
I think the Black Chapel is actually Peter Craft's house.
It might be. It might be. This was a scary little episode, wasn't it?
It was a good little creepy Frank episode for sure. This kid is really good. He really does put the old wobbles in the kneecaps for me anyway.
Did you have to change your pants during this one, Chris?
Let's change my pants and more just change every piece of, because when I wasn't sweating through my clothes, it was doing other things through my clothes.
Okay.
Were you still in the Magda outfit? So it was kind of, it all kind of got contained quite nicely.
All the way.
Excellent.
Yeah, great stuff.
Good stuff. Welcome back, fellow Dreadfuls. Before we go into this week's episode, I want to just plug one thing that I did this week, which was awesome. I got to be on another podcast. I got to guest host on Strange Indeed. With my awesome friend, Rima Joe.
Very good.
Talking about my favorite ever episode of Black Mirror, which was called Be Right Back. Do you remember this one? It had,
it's also the most depressing episode of Black Mirror, or it's certainly up there for sure.
It can be. We got really in depth into it as we usually do in podcasts, but it's the episode that had Helly Atwell and Donald Gleason in the episode, where it is quite depressing. He loses his life and she brings it back as an android, basically. So it's an interesting episode. All episodes of Black Mirror are really enjoyable.
Yeah, absolutely.
But this is one that actually we had a good old discussion on. That episode will be out on Strange Indeed on Thursday the 17th of June, if I've got my days right. No, that's the 18th of June. Thursday the 18th of June. So go check that out. It was a great chat. I'll plug it and I'll send it out on Twitter and I'll send it out on the Facebook group. But really great to be on that. That's one of my favourite TV podcasts out there. So really honoured to be invited on the
good
podcast.
Stuff.
Yeah. We're glad we get to share you with a new world. Hopefully you plugged us so they come back to us. I'm glad to have the new listeners. Welcome. If you're joining us for the first time, and if you're not, well, you know the rigmarole with me. I just rant and ramble. Yeah.
That's our Chris. One final thing to plug. Once again, we're coming up to our 500th episode at the beginning of July. We'd love to hear from any of our listeners that want to share any thoughts with us about any of the shows that they've been listening to. If you're a Penny Dreadful fan, you want to just give us an overall overview of what you thought of our coverage of Penny Dreadful, email us at feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com, or you can leave a voicemail for us over on our website at tvpodcastindustries.com, or record your voice and email it to the email address. So you can use both.
Yes, but I will actually do one final plug. We don't usually hit everyone up for stuff, but we'd love if you have a bit of spare time, pull over to the side of the road if you're driving your car, and essentially just jump over to BritishPodcastAwards.com/vote. And if you could just go into the Listener's Choice Award category and plug the old TV podcast industries, we'd really appreciate it. It's a nice little recognition of the work that we do, and more actually the listenership that you do, to show that we are there and we matter when it comes to discussing our favorite podcasts.
Yes, it would be cool if we got some votes in there for the People's Choice Award, or the Listener's Choice Award, of course, is the right description of that, Derek. Yeah, have a go at that. It'd be really cool. It's open until the 11th of July, I think, before they close that first round of voting. And it is just as easy as going to BritishPodcastAwards.com/vote. It's right there. You don't even have to search. Just type in our name, TV Podcast Industries, and we'll pop right up.
And just keep voting.
Absolutely.
Just keep voting. If your granny has a Gmail account or an email account, get her to vote for us, because any of our long-time listeners will know I love the grannies and the grandpas and the aunties and the uncles. They all should be listening to our show and should be voting for us, because what else are they doing?
Absolutely. Anyway, let's get into this week's episode, our discussion about Penny Dreadful, City of Angels, episode 8, Hide and Seek. The episode was directed by Sheree Folkson, who directed episode 7, and was written by Tatiana Suarez-Pico. You guys may recognize that name because she was an executive story editor on Iron Fist Season 2, the excellent season of Iron Fist. She wrote episode 3 of the second season, This Deadly Secret. Do you remember the episode with the dinner party, the kind of really awkward dinner party with Deli and Colleen?
That was excellent.
Davos
in the
there.
dojo.
Yeah, in the dojo.
Yeah.
It was a really cool episode and really good dialogue between all the characters as well. It was one of those ones that really set up the rest of the season at that point. So I think she did a great job over there, and she got a meaty episode here as well on Penny Dreadful too, didn't she?
She gave me so many answers, but pose so many more questions.
Yes, she did. Another episode not written by John Logan, the showrunner, as well. So I think he comes back towards the end of the season to close out the show. We've just got 2 episodes left, remember, of the first and maybe only season of Penny Dreadful. Still no confirmation that the show's getting a second season, or whether it was ever intended to have a second season. But there's definitely some stuff set up in this episode I feel may not be able to be played out by the end of this season, or at least gives us some threads to go into if we do get a second season.
Definitely. Go Linda Craft.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. She's awesome in this episode as well. I know obviously with COVID and with everything going on at the moment, it's quite difficult for production companies to come out and go into their regular schedule of this show is out there. We're going to renew it for next year and build up that kind of the way of doing things the way they normally do. So it's not necessarily an indication that it won't get a season 2 just because it hasn't been renewed right now. Things aren't back in production at all yet, so they may just wait until a couple more weeks until they know exactly what's going on in the future before they renew it. But it's been a really good season so far.
Yeah,
so
the rumor mill at the moment online, because that's what where all good rumors are, is that a lot is being held for Comic-Con, virtual Comic-Con.
Right.
So a lot of the announcements, because they're not, with everything going on, a lot of the marketing departments don't want to, cannibalize the, airways for more bigger, better social, conversations that need to be happening. But at the same time as well, they actually aren't sure when they can fit things in. So I think apparently a lot of things are going to be teased at, the upcoming, San Diego Comic-Con virtual piece they're going to do, but they may not be giving direct dates.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? I think it's coming 22nd of July to the 25th, I think, are the 5 days that they're doing it. We'll definitely be watching it for that to see what we're going to be covering in future, really.
Well, yeah, pretty much just pushing everything back. So in 2024, I've lost one arm, don't ask why, but the Eternals.
Season 4 of Moon Knight.
The
maybe.
Eternals.
There you go.
The TV show.
That'll be coming.
That's coming for sure.
John, do you want to give us the synopsis for this episode of Penny Dreadful, City of Angels, Hide and Seek?
Sure. Lewis confronts Townsend in his office at City Hall. Meanwhile, Tiago questions Adelaide at the temple, where he discovers Josefina is now a member of Sister Molly's congregation and is being baptized. Rio implores Mateo to forget his old family and brace her and the Pachucos. Elsewhere, Peter visits Linda at the asylum, only to find her ready for war. Townsend and Kurt go on a dangerous date, while Peter Kraft argues with members of the German-American Bund. In the Kraft home, Frank terrorizes Tom and Trevor as Maria fights to protect them from the demonic child. That's about right. Demonic child.
Yeah, absolutely. It is, again, I have to repeat myself a little bit here, but it is still, I'm finding it still a little difficult going, that's still Magda in there. It's still Magda, even when he burns his hand and second Magda runs into the room to calm him down, basically. I still see the two of them as two completely separate characters, but they're not. It's still Magda, you know, so demonic child, who's also the other woman in the room asking for Maria to be fired. So, I don't know. I'm kind of still trying to wrap my head around all of these versions of Magda in there.
Before we kick in, I'd like to ask a question.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
We said that our Townsend and our little Gestapo friend went to, on a date night.
Mm-hmm.
These pubs, these gentlemen clubs, or these private clubs, these were real things. This wasn't made for TV. These were.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. They've been around for centuries. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. No, because I literally watched this and I went, wow, I did not know. Yeah. Like, I knew about 1920s prohibition. Mm-hmm. They had the speakeasies and stuff, but actually it was something that never occurred to me.
Right.
That these types of bars would have existed back then. Mm-hmm. And also they had the kind of the knock on the door. You learn something new every day. Yeah. I was just like, wow, like this is cool. And again, it's just even the way it was a speakeasy type thing, but it was a way that people could express themselves back then. Exactly.
Now they've been around for
absolutely
hundreds of years. In fact, if I remember rightly, I think there was a club just like this in Penny Dreadful. The first series of Penny Dreadful, I think that was a dogfighting club, which is a similar type of hidden club underground in Victoria, London, and it was kind of indicating that there were loads of these types of clubs for different parts of society. This is just a gay bar, basically, that you're able to just knock on the door and be allowed in, and same-sex couples are allowed to dance together. But this whole idea of an underworld behind the facade of the city is kind of something that they've dealt with before. So.
I mean, it certainly felt like the TARDIS as well from Doctor Who. I was kind of expecting a small bar, mm-hmm. but it was all fairly grand inside. But that was a great set actually, or location, depending on what how they filmed that. But mm-hmm. I actually, it's not so much a question, but I've got a theory, because what's beginning to freak me out now here is that we're talking about Frank being Magda. Mm-hmm. There's obviously Elsa, Alex, Rio, all Magda, and then there's Magda. And I'm kind of thinking, are there any people that don't look like Magda who are Magda?
Mm-hmm. Because we already have Frank. So Frank doesn't look anything like Natalie Dormer.
Yeah.
And he is Magda. So there absolutely could be other people.
So I was kind of, I was thinking around this in relation to Tiago and Molly, just because feels like a doomed relationship, mm-hmm. even though they're persisting at it, which kind of sounds a bit like Magda and Santa Muerta.
Yeah.
And I'm like, we were talking about, he's got the hand of Santa Muerta sort of imprinted on his chest, and your theory about whether she's, dealing with another god to kind of imbue her with this righteousness, to promote her sort of deity, her holiness, this kind of thing. And I just wondered, is it a metaphor for a doomed relationship, and that maybe Molly is also Magda? But mm-hmm. that might be a theory too far. But I just wondered, are there potentially anyone else that is Magda but doesn't look like Magda?
I think that's entirely possible.
I think that's definitely a thing. I don't know about Molly, but I think definitely later on, I think there will be a reveal in hopefully either this season or in the next episode or the next season, if it gets one, where it's like, hey, Mr. Gestapo is secretly Magda, or hey, X is secretly Magda all along.
Yeah.
It just you get the feeling, and that's especially, I'm zeroing in on Mr. Gestapo, because she goes, when he was asked to kill the councilwoman, that he goes, you don't know what you're asking for.
Mm-hmm.
And you could play that in the sense that he asks for it, but at the same time, it's like, hey, you don't want me to kill blah, blah, blah. But at the same time, you could be, well, if you ask Magda to kill someone, then you are basically doing a contract with a devil or a demon, and therefore you're losing your soul, blah, blah, blah.
Maybe.
Like, so there's,
So you're thinking maybe Kurt could be Magda as well, yeah.
Okay, interesting. Because I think Magda, certainly, the approaches, the method of her approach is very different. You know, she's terrorizing the kids in the Kraft household. Mm-hmm. Yet at the same time, you know, that kind of interesting mixed message with Alex, Townsend's aide, coming up to Lewis. Now, maybe it's just a red herring. Maybe it's there's another plan behind it, which is most likely the case. But you know, Magda was throwing me off this episode. A lot of depth and variety to her kind of methods here.
Absolutely.
Which is kind of interesting.
That's what you get when you get a demon whispering in people's ears, telling them what she wants them to do, basically. Yeah. Let's get into our big moments from the episode, guys. John, do you want to kick us off first again?
Yeah, I'm going with my big moment, which is Lewis and Tiago follow up on the old Third Reich. Mm-hmm. I kind of liked that. Again, this episode was bookended with Lewis and Tiago, beginning this kind of private investigation, really, because I presume they're still on their week's break or holiday from the police department.
That's right, yeah.
After chucking Tiago under the bus, so to speak. But it's kind of we see them heading off, and Lewis heads off to the city hall. Tiago heads off to the temple to question Miss Adelaide. And I kind of really like these two encounters, really. I think with Lewis, it really added some resonance because of what Townsend had just gone through with Councilwoman Beck, in her office. Absolutely. Where he's trying to throw her and threaten her, but is equally thrown off by the fact that she really has him clocked as being homosexual. She knows his secret, and I love that it kind of just nods back to the last episode where she, in speaking with Alex, she says, "You just popped up," which means you have a secret. And in politics, secrets are currency. So she's certainly, you know, he was all kind of frustrated, frazzled, and all of a sudden he's being questioned by Lewis. And I think that's why he says, next time you come in, you need some kind of legal warrant or document, and I'll have my lawyer here. Because he was totally thrown off. And I like that in that moment, Lewis kind of pounces. He probably thought he may get no headway at all. But
good to put the pressure on, and good to say to this guy, we've got our eyes on you, and we know who you're visiting.
Exactly.
You know,
that he is now aware, like, that the LAPD, because he probably sees this as a formal, official kind of visit in that sense, that the LAPD now know about his meals with the Third Reich, which I just thought it was really nice. And I like the fact that you had Alex actually being really quite quiet here. She just sits back and lets it all unfold.
Yeah.
And it's just at the end, and again, she's responding to him. She doesn't proffer anything in this moment. She doesn't really speak to Lewis, and it's Townsend that gives her the instruction to call Miss Adelaide to warn her that they're onto them. Yeah. That the LAPD are onto them. But we have that then really surprising encounter with Alex Malone, or should we say Alexandra Muller now, where she's chosen Malone so that she fits in City Hall, really. She
sounds Irish.
Yeah, well, exactly. She hides her Jewish history. which I think is really interesting. There are a few names that we get to find out about and get revealed in this episode. But I thought that was really surprising. I'm still not entirely sure how to take it, whether part of her plan is maybe this. It's kind of because we know what she wants in terms of endgame, but then to suddenly have this moment with Lewis is probably just to put him off guard. I'm sure of it. But I'm just wondering, wouldn't this be really interesting if maybe her reasons for using Townsend are effectively so she can throw him under the bus and move forward with something or someone else. It's just really interesting.
Yeah, or just bear in mind one of the other threats that was there. The reason why Townsend was going to visit Councilwoman Beck was because she has another candidate to replace him. A woman who says she's willing to serve the city. So there's only one other woman that we know of right now that's in the political realm. Potentially, has she aligned herself with Alex as well? Is Alex going to get her way and take over from Townsend when he is kicked out? When she uses the video recording of his first night with Kurt,
Yeah, maybe.
So she get him kicked out, and now she has Councilwoman Beck on her side, Potentially this was her plan all along. We've been thinking it's to get Townsend into the presidency. Well, if you have Magda actually in public office herself, surely she can control a lot more of the city of LA, But also with that conversation with Lewis, I love that she speaks in Yiddish. Natalie Dormer gets some amount of work to do in this show. This must have taken her months. She's had to learn German, Yiddish, that German-English accent that she has to do. She's got to do all the different characters, all the different styles, But the actual conversation with Lewis, she says to him, I will give you information when I can, but it's going to be really difficult for me. So she's given him that he has an ally in Townsend's office, but said, I won't be able to give you a lot of information. So that's a great way to keep him on side and also not have to give him information every single day. It's not like she's wearing a wire going in every day or anything.
No,
like
that's true.
She just says, I will share information about the next meetings that he has. Now, she will be on the back foot because Lewis has been watching the meetings with Goss. So he knows when he meets. And if he doesn't hear from Magda or Alex after those meetings, he's going to know that he's being led down the garden path. So she needs to be very careful. But I think it's just to kind of put him off and say, I will give you information, but it won't be a lot.
I think so, but at the same time, in a sense, Alex or Magda, her whole point is to play both sides off against one another. Sure. And so whilst it's this, she's been there supporting Townsend and so on, and he has these, misogynistic, racist views, Councilwoman Beck talks about the social engineering. It starts with the Mexicans. Who will it move on to, and so on. But at the same time, Alex, Magda, as she is with Rio, needs to sort of ruffle and ferment the revolutionary seeds and anger with the Mexicans, like she's doing with Mateo, and here potentially is doing it with Lewis. Not so much sort of stirring things up, but she actually wants to align with both sides, as long as it ultimately brings them to clash.
Absolutely.
That's really the point, I feel, with Magda. So I suppose it's not that unusual that she would sort of make that connection with Lewis.
Yeah. The person Miss Beck was talking about, Councilwoman Beck, I thought it was Miss Adelaide. Because we get this whole speech and discussion, which we'll talk about in a second, about what the good work she does and her church does. So she's looking like she cares more about the actual, the social injustices and things that Townsend doesn't care about.
Yeah, potentially.
So that's where I assumed it was going. And
interesting. Yeah.
And the reason Alex is pretty much going, all right, okay, Townsend to a degree might be already gone, is because back to John, what you talked about a second ago, is like, we still don't know. There could be another Townsend, there could be another Alex, another Magda that we don't know. There's probably someone in the church.
absolutely.
Could be.
That is the storyline that doesn't have a Magda right now.
Yeah.
Still doesn't have a Magda.
Yeah.
So that's why I think Molly, I like the character, but there's just that idea that keeps coming through over and over again throughout the show that she has so many secrets that she's keeping from others, and she has to come up with excuses for those secrets and not telling them to Tiago, not telling them to her mother, all of that kind of stuff, which makes me kind of go, okay, maybe she is much more evil underneath it all.
Yeah.
So, and potentially, as I said before, maybe she is just channeling Magda. Maybe she's not actually Magda, but maybe she's in contact with the demon, and that's what she thinks is the voice of God coming through her is actually the voice of Magda coming through her. But I think that would be a great revelation if she didn't know she was evil, basically.
Yeah.
Anything else on this point, John? You've got a couple of other things I'd say.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose then Tiago goes to the temple, and I like the fact that Miss Adelaide presumably has been forewarned, but has this very different reception to Tiago. She's very receptive to him. She's kind of fairly predisposed towards him. But ultimately it kind of turns nasty, really, because the ultimate goal is to show Molly baptizing his sister, Josefina, who he has no inkling about at all. And I like how just Miss Adelaide turns. It's just really nice, from saying, you don't understand what job I do here, and does all these charitable things, the doctors, the medicine, the food, the shelter, the soup kitchens, the ministry, all this outreach. And then, in that moment effectively talks about Molly's secrets, and she does like to keep secrets. And of course, she's baptizing one of those secrets that she hasn't even, mentioned to Tiago. And I love that kind of interaction, because you see Tiago kind of just being fairly businesslike with her, and then sort of the blood boiling as he sees Molly with his sister. But I think what I really like is that ultimately the two of them can't keep their hands off one another, but they appear doomed. It's this doomed relationship. It is almost like Romeo and Juliet.
You do mean Molly and Tiago, not Molly and Miss Adelaide, or Tiago and Miss Adelaide.
That's
sorry, no, or Tiago and Lewis. Tiago and Molly.
Yes.
That their relationship is doomed, or appears doomed. Just in terms of the interference from Molly's mum, Miss Adelaide, just from certainly the secrets that he's been keeping from Lewis and his family about even dating her. The idea that, they're being followed by Randolph, Molly's kind of caretaker and sort of security, I suppose.
Yeah. Or at least Miss Adelaide's security of Molly.
Just everything.
She's monitored at all times. Yeah.
Well, exactly. It's just that everything seems stacked against them, yet they can't, even between the two of them, their own relationship is fraught. It's hanging on by this thread, yet they can't keep their hands off one another.
And Brokeback Mountain, John, she can't quit him.
No, exactly.
No.
I just can't quit you.
She really can't.
I can quit you for using that reference.
Fine, why not?
So I really, really liked this, to be honest. I even liked it more with the fact that Lewis finds out about it as well. When after their two investigations, he comes racing round to Tiago so that they can go off to break into the Via Formosa development's office, so that they can kind of find more incriminating evidence. And he comes in, and there's Molly in the bed, and he as he leaves, he just says, "Good evening, milady." He's kind of like, and then interrogates Tiago to say, "When were you going to tell me this one? Do you think she knows about the Nazis? No. Are you sure about that? No." And ultimately, this investigation then that they have been doing throughout the day, both leads to them being shot at in the street, which I thought was, I did think Lewis was going to
and at the same time, I used the joke, clutched my pearls. I just went, oh no! I was just like, to kill off that character, they didn't. And it would be fine. They didn't. But in my head, I raced through like, how dare they kill off such an important character?
Thankfully.
I was like, the rage and indignation was growing in me. And then you see him shoot back. I was like, yeah,
exactly.
It was just,
It's that 8th episode Netflix turn, really, isn't it? That's roughly the point when they kill off one of the major characters by surprise at the end of an episode. You're coming up, you're watching the clock, you're watching it go down to the end of the episode and going, maybe Lewis is dead here. Maybe this is the moment where they kill off a major character just after one of his best lines of the series, which is, a secret lay is always a good lay, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Great
I
line.
literally thought they were going to do, like, if this was Netflix, the guns would have fired, he would have kind of rolled down and it went ka-ding, and then that would have been the end credits, and you'd then have to go into the next episode to see them shoot back.
Yeah, absolutely. I like, there was something about that scene, the way it was constructed, that I felt something might happen to poor Lewis. And I'm glad that it didn't, for sure.
Yeah.
I kind of do wish, though, that maybe they had, if a few of Tiago and Lewis's bullets had landed on that kind of silhouetted shape with the machine gun. It felt really 1930s Chicago gangster. Absolutely. I really liked it.
Yeah. It's a Tommy gun as well. Those things obviously hold about 6,000 bullets in them. He was shooting for a long time.
He certainly was. But I don't know, got his leg or something so that they kind of can identify who it was. Because, I mean, for me, it was either Kurt or Randolph. And I can't imagine Randolph had sort of a semi-automatic machine gun. But you never know, for sure.
Know. So that's your theory then, that it's either Randolph, the minder of Molly, that's come to take out.
Or it's like Miss Adelaide. Is it Miss Adelaide? Is that what you're saying?
No,
it's kind of like Hot Fuzz, where the grannies come out with the guns. It's like, stay away from my daughter.
Well, Miss Adelaide has her gun, which is Randolph. So yeah, that makes sense as a logical point. But do you think Kurt has been dispatched to kill them? I don't know what it is about Kurt as the character. I feel like, I know we've only seen him on screen kill the two friends of Lewis. But he did it quite brutally, quite quickly, and covered the whole thing up as well, remember. It feels like he'd probably stalk Lewis into a back alley and kill him. Yeah. Rather than doing something so open in the street as a Tommy gun from across the street.
It feels more like a warning, I think. I think her goss is very smart. The suggestion from Townsend that he should assassinate Councilwoman Beck was kind of, dismissed out of hand as, well, no, it would draw too much attention. And if things go south, then maybe, last resort type of thing. And that maybe with, Lewis and Tiago's investigation is not unknown. So it's more of a warning off, to say, stop. And because they're LAPD, they don't want to shoot as such to detectives. Yeah. So, that might explain why most of the bullets missed, but it certainly did tons of damage to the car.
It certainly did, yeah, absolutely. But I just wonder, I suppose, what's the purpose of this right now? If it's not Herr Goss, is it somebody else that knows they're following the Nazis and is trying to warn them off? Not in a good way, not like, steer clear, you're not safe. Like, obviously, is it another member of one of the other parties? Maybe someone from the German Bund, maybe has taken exception to the two of them following Herr Goss and Townsend and Miss Adelaide. Miss Adelaide does feel reasonably aggressive that she may send Randolph out to shoot somebody in the street. But I'm still not too sure about that character. There's ideas that maybe she's not as evil as she is, that Molly's the evil one. Why would she send somebody out to shoot someone with Molly in plain sight? I don't know. But those are the two big theories, I guess, would be either of the two.
I suspect it's Kurt and Herr Goss.
Maybe.
So I actually suspect it's Randall.
Right.
Because, just because I don't think it doesn't seem as personal or as up close as what Kurt would do, or the Gestapo would do. I think it's based on what previously Miss Adelaide had said, the way that she deals with the implication, the suggestion that it was Randall who did the original 4 killings. of the family and
The Haslets, yeah.
the Haslets, and then then based on what Lewis and Tiago and what they figured out and their pushing of what's happened in this episode.
Yeah.
I get the feeling it's Randall.
Yeah.
That's where my, and also the height and the silhouette. Unless it is Miss Adelaide,
Maybe. There was that interesting moment from Miss Adelaide where she thanked Tiago when he arrived for finding the murderers of the Haslets. So she knows that. I think she gauges from his reaction that there may be something that he's not certain that Diego did it. Potentially, if it is something that Miss Adelaide did, well, she knows who the murderer is, right? So maybe that's the reason that she's sending Randolph out to kill the two of them, is because now that there's someone in custody, if it killed the two detectives who may have doubts over who they put in custody, then that all goes away. The whole Hazlitt thing goes away. Maybe that's the reason. I know you're pretty much finished with your point, John, but can we mention the singer in the club now? Can we?
No,
It was
absolutely.
one of the most exciting moments in the episode for Penny Dreadful fans.
Absolutely. That was one of my kind of little points around Councilman Townsend, because, he's been threatened by Councilwoman Beck. He is drinking at least early in the morning in his city office. He's had the LAPD detectives in his office. And he's kind of unwinding with Kurt, so to speak, or so we think in this private club, which is just so nicely done. I mean, even down to the detail of having the alarm bell in case it's the Vice Squad that come through the doors. I like even that Townsend, as they're walking down the alleyway, he pulls to one side as two ladies walk past, just so they don't recognize him. He tips the front the doorman so that keeps his silence, or adds a little bit more persuasion to that silence that he would anyway keep. And I just thought it was really nicely observed. And then I think the whole thing with Kurt, and they call both Beck and Kurt call him by his first name, Charlton, here. And that's why I think Councilwoman Beck's threat to him, even though she would follow through on it, she doesn't want to. And because she calls him Charlton, and she says, "Watch your back." And Kurt here in this moment calls him Charlton. And I really kind of like that conversation, as we kind of just discussed before this. He's straight out with wanting to kill her. And we have that "I don't work for you," but he says, "You don't know what you're saying. You're not a killer. You'll lose something that's not the man I love." And it is kind of interesting that these two despicable guys, Kurt and Charlton, one a Gestapo, the other this racist bigot in public office. And yet there's this moment of something that's relatable, certainly for me, going to a gay club or bar and speaking quite tenderly. And again, it's that idea that the observation that these two people can be despicable, but they can also have very tender, very real, emotive feelings and kindness towards one another, even though they're unkind to other people. It's a complete, and I love that. I think it's so real and complex and interesting that they portray it in this way, I think. And of course we get Patti Lupone in the club as well.
Finally, poor Chris has been sitting on the opposite side of our Skype when I said this is a big moment for Penny Dreadful fans. He's been going, "What? I'm a Penny Dreadful fan. What the hell was the big moment about the singer?" And I've been waiting for you to say Patti Lupone. Patti Lupone was an actress in the first series of Penny Dreadful. She had probably the biggest episode in season 2, which was the wife of Ballantyre Moore, and she played the character of The Cut Wife of Ballantrae Moor, an excellent two-handed episode with Eva Green, where the two of them were the only real people that were in the entire episode. She was magnificent, and because she was so good, she was brought back as a major character in the final season, played Dr. Seward, a completely different character in the final season of Penny Dreadful as well. So,
but a relative of
a descendant.
A descendant.
The way she's described, yeah. 500 years, I think, is probably the difference between the two. So not like a cousin, but like a distant descendant of a character that lived for many, many years, yeah. So
They're
really
related.
Cool. They are related.
They looked very similar.
Yes, they did, of course. Yes. And then I think instantly the character reacts to that as well. So, but this time we have Patti Lupone on stage here. She is a well-known singer from stage in the US. She's been on Broadway since the 70s, and also appeared in the wonderful show Pose last season as a very villainous character in her role in there. Sometimes villainous, sometimes duplicitous as well. But really cool to see her back on Penny Dreadful for just this one episode, and have her in this moment with Charlton and Kurt dancing below. I think it was a really good moment between all of these characters here, and it's just great to see Patti Lupone back on screen.
Do you think she's supposed to be a descendant again?
No, I don't think they're going to connect it that way, but it would be a good way to connect it, because I suppose what some fans complained about with the Dr. Seward character being connected to the Cut Wife of Ballantrae Moor is that it didn't play off into anything by the end of the third season. It was just, it was learnt that she was a descendant, but it didn't really have a connection to the Cut Wife. Would that be accurate, John?
Yeah, absolutely. It didn't pay off in that respect. We didn't suddenly find ourselves back on Ballantrae Moor for sure, but I think the idea of having that connective tissue running through was really good.
It's just great to have Patti Lupone back in the stable for this fourth season of Penny Dreadful. I think I saw the image of her on stage in this particular scene. I think it was an image that was released sometime in January of this year. So I've actually known that she was going to appear in the show for about 6 months. And I was expecting her to play a character similar to Rory Kinnear, that they would bring the actor back playing a completely different character. But at least we get a great performance from her on stage.
Yeah, no, it was great. And that whole scene was just fantastic.
Really good. Really, really good. Chris, do you want to take us on with your big moment from the episode? Because I think you have one of the best moments from the episode, to be honest.
Sure. Just let me dislocate my jaw a bit more.
Absolutely.
Do you want to scream?
That was not me screaming. That was an attempted scream. I just want to save everyone's eardrums. Yeah. My big point is, and I thank you guys for giving me this point, or allowing me to take this point, which is hide and seek in the Kraft family home. This job, Maria's there. We now start to see that Elsa, Magda, and her forms of Elsa and Frank are not happy with the coyote being in there. And then Derek, hats off. There's multiple mentions of coyote in this episode.
Absolutely.
Now know why, but just the first introduction where we see Maria burying the hamster with Tommy, and we get the sense that she's starting to be aware that Elsa and Frank, there's something wrong, that there's darkness afoot.
Yes.
And she then provides Tommy with the talisman of protection, the black talisman of the coyote. That then leads to we skip forward. We start to see that there's obviously Frank is challenging Maria there. And that's straight for the jugular, or the emotional jugular. It's like, did you always want to wash toilets? No, you want to be a nun. No. Then you went and got knocked up. I'm paraphrasing here, but essentially and then ending with that bone-curdling dislocation. And it's all back to normal, split second, and everything's... What did you think?
Go on inside with the boys, which is why I love Maria as a character in this show, because despite everything that's going on, she's not fazed by it. She's weirded out by it. She's creeped out a little bit by it, but she's not fazed. She still knows there's something going on. She's also not connecting that it is specifically Magda, even though she had that conversation with Magda before. All of the stuff that's going on between her and these two characters, Elsa and Frank, all the time, she's not specifically saying this is the same character that I had that fight with in my house. She's still treating them like they are a child in her care and her new boss, basically, in the case of Elsa, still being very polite with them. Even though the first time she talks to Elsa in this episode, Elsa says to her, "Did you hear the coyote crying outside yesterday? If that was in our home, we would kill them all. We would slaughter them all." So indicating to her, "Hi, I know you're the old coyote. I'm Magda." But she goes and just says, "I didn't hear it." And then she's told that she's not allowed to have Mexicans near the house because what would the neighbors think? And she apologizes and says that won't happen again, miss, basically. So, she's not rising to the challenge. Well, she's not rising to the challenge, I think. She's dealing with it. But I like that if you wrap it back to what she said to Tommy at the beginning of the episode, where he realized and says to her out loud, "Frank is the one that killed my hamster. He's the one that killed, Friar Tuck." And she goes, "I believe you. You can't tell anybody. Not yet." So, so maybe that's it. Maybe she's just going to play the role, not reveal to them that she knows the information, that she knows that these two beings are Magda, until she's in a stronger position, until she has a way to defeat them towards the end of the series.
Yeah. Because what we get is then the I don't want to call it a dream, but it's a dreamlike sequence.
Yeah, it's similar to I would say similar to the sequence from earlier on in the season with Tommy seeing the dead body of the murdered girl that Frank put into his mind. So it is something that she is experiencing, but she comes back to the same moment afterwards. So it's almost like a dream.
Yes, yeah.
So and probably the kids didn't experience it.
No, I don't think they did. Like, I think that's the whole point is that that's just between her and Frank.
Yeah.
But the earlier thing between them where he unlocks his jaw, I think that is in the real world.
Yes.
And you're right. I think Maria's got this inner strength, and it's whether it's the belief in the power of her talisman, her idols that she worships and prays to. And I think it's that, because I agree. What she says to Tom as they are having the grand burial of Friar Tuck underneath the cherry tree, also looked on by creepy Frank from the window. But yeah, she's "Don't tell your father yet," or Trevor, not just yet. It feels like she knows she has to bide her time and be patient. It's like with her confrontation in that dream with her dead husband. I loved that moment where her husband Jose appears and is effectively telling her to run, to get out of there and forget about it. And she says, "Let me tell you what I know," which is not a lot. "There are two things I know, which should be more for a woman of my age."
Love her.
Really good. One is my husband would never tell me to run away. And two, the beast takes many forms. So I think she does know it's Magda. In terms of the beast, I think with that reference to the beast, I think it's been building on her through. You've always seen the kind of polite refrain that she's had in the presence of Elsa, and certainly as well with Peter Kraft there.
Yeah.
I think with her protective coyote symbol, now with Tom, also potentially she has the protection, or she is praying for the protection from Santa Muerta. She's faced Magda off in her own home. I feel that she knows her foe, so to speak. And I think that's really, really interesting. She's a wily coyote.
Yeah.
Dare I say it?
Yeah.
Me. As long as Magda isn't a roadrunner, let's just say that. Me.
Where my head stands is I think she knows the beast is Frank. The beast was definitely based on the jaw, based on just the end scene where he whacks off the kettle and looks her straight in the eye and just kind of barbecues his own hand.
Yeah.
I don't know if she knows it's Elsa as well. I think there may be suspicions, but I don't think. I think Maria's biding her time. Like you guys said, she's trying to build her strategy for whatever reason. I think we have asked for a long time. Not asked for a long time. We've asked a few times, like, where's the supernatural in this, aside from Magda being multiple? Sorry, when I say we, I've asked.
You've asked
multiple
yes.
times, where's the supernatural? We got this in spades. Like, we got creepy Frank, like, running around the walls. Like, literally, I was expecting a spider moment shoot up, like, where the camera looks up and he's there, like, spider crawling, head twisted back. We never got that directly, but we did get Maria's husband, Jose, like, burning to a crisp, like,
Absolutely.
melting, which hands off to the CGI makeup department on that one.
Yeah.
That looked crisp in 4K. Crisp.
It really did look amazing. And it's such a punishment for Maria as well, for her not accepting, I suppose, the what Frank is trying to do to get her to leave. She's not accepting it. She's saying, I know that you're lying. I know that you must be the beast. And her punishment is she must watch her husband die. Remember, she wasn't even there at the time when he died. She arrived afterwards. It was only Tiago that was there. He was the only survivor, I think, or one of the only survivors of that burning that Magda did in that first episode. So for her to have to experience what her husband went through as a punishment for not taking the advice of Frank almost, I think is really brutal. And I think it's so well acted by Adriana Barraza. I think she's just stunning in that moment where you can really feel that it's something that she never wanted to see, something that she never wanted to experience. It's probably even worse than she ever imagined to see her husband there screaming in front of her, you know?
And it leads us to, like, Elsa's been trying to get rid of Maria for this whole episode. And we do get this confrontation at the end, which we can discuss in a bit, but more, it doesn't come to fruition. And we see the consternation. We see the anger on Elsa or / Magda as she sits back into the chair, as she's not fired. Maria's still there. And like, she was planning all this to get rid of the coyote from the house and unfortunately she still has a coyote problem.
Yeah, she does.
Yes, she does.
And she's potentially backed the wrong horse as well. So it's kind of, it's multiplied on her. It is, you know, it's that moment where at the horse races, you realize your bet isn't about to win you a ton of money. And I love that she seems dejected here. It gives this vulnerable side to Magda, which I think is really good. I think
Interesting read on it.
not that she's vulnerable. Vulnerable's not, but she's not infallible. Yes, I suppose exactly. More to the point. Yeah. The other thing I really want to pick out here is two things. One, the whole lights down, brothers down, completely thought that this was happening. I had no idea that it was a dream sequence as she was looking into the bloody water. And so just that sense of, at that moment, I thought, Trevor and Tom know. They realize something is a little unreal about Frank. But the whole, the lights down, the torch, all of that was like fantastic. Yeah. And Frank, when he burns himself and he's just like looking at Maria, smiling, and then as Elsa and Peter come in, that little kid's acting was fantastic. I love his change. Santino Bernard, just that change from creepy smiling kid with his hand in the gas flame to like wounded, burnt child looking for the comfort of his mum. It was really good. I loved that scene. I loved the really quick change so much.
So good. Yeah, really, really good.
So yeah, for me, this brought the supernatural, which I really enjoyed. And this brought it all front and ahead. But that's kind of really it, because there's a lot more. There's one final bit which ties into this, which greater discussion later. So I think let's close off this point. But yeah, Derek, what's your major point for this episode?
It's not as scary, unfortunately, but still great.
Well,
still great.
Well, it is. Certain places.
In certain places, yes. But that moment, you're right, Chris, that hide and seek moment is the scariest moment of the season so far. a manipulated dream or a manipulated vision, I suppose, for Maria. So, what I have is a bit more, a little more grounded. We have, Peter, Linda and Elsa are the other major storyline really in this episode, because we get a great visit from Peter to Linda Craft in the sanatorium. I love the scene because I love how it starts out where she's completely dismissive of Peter bringing her the yellow roses because he bought them just down in the concession stand on the way into the building. It's like, oh, how great you remembered. And then he tries to placate her, instantly telling her that she looks beautiful. And she's like, I haven't washed my hair in 3 weeks. You know, I do not look beautiful. You're saying that to get something out of me. But we see how strong Linda Craft is. We heard it from her when she was being forced to go to the sanatorium. We heard she was going to fight this, but she was going to go willingly for the moment and then bide her time. I love that how it's turning effectively is that her father's going to take care of her. He's going to look over all of the docs, and she will then bide her time potentially for years until she's able to pull apart the house of cards that is built on, as we'll currently call him, Dr. Peter Craft. I love that she knows his secrets. I love that she's going to use that against him, but who's going to wait for the best possible time to destroy this man. I think that's really interesting play from Linda, and I really say Piper Parabo in this scene shows why she's in the show. She's so good in this moment between them.
Absolutely. This was a standout moment, not just for this character and for this actress. For me, it was a standout moment for the series, and I know that says a lot, and I kind of moving it quite high. My rationale for that was, you've seen this character. If you didn't know who Piper Parabo was, your assumption is that this is a supporting character. It's not going to be a big deal in the end, right? Yeah. But the intensity, the acting chops that Piper brings to this, this sets it up.
Yeah.
How this sets it up to be played, who knows? But it's really just this kind of like, hey, you know this character that you thought was just kind of in the background that you barely saw and just got chipped off? No. She means business.
Absolutely.
And this is how.
Yeah. And I kind of like the insight it gives into Peter's character as well, because, you know, we'll talk about it a bit more in the other part of this point, but, Peter actually genuinely does seem to be almost a good guy in some senses. He seems to be a person that believes he's right anyway, and believes that he's trying to have a peaceful life effectively. And she plays on that with him. She kind of plays on the fact that she knows he's not going to push this too far. She will be able to take apart all of this life that he's built for him, because it's all built on lies, and she knows that. I must say, I also love her final line to him. The next time, bring back a lawyer and a cow for my roommate who misses her cows at home. I love that moment between the two of them. But I do think that she knows that he's a bit of a sniveling git, basically. That he's not a strong man. He's a man that wants peace and thinks he's going to be able to get through life getting what he wants and not making too many waves, even though he's part of a Nazi bunt. You know, or the German bunt, excuse me. He's not a Nazi, which is the other part I was going to talk about in a minute. But it is interesting that she knows that about him. He kind of says to her, you know, I'll just sign the documents. And she says, my father will look over them. And, oh, no, it's not necessary for that to happen. And she knows that he's just being a bit slimy about it and doesn't want to have a confrontation with her.
Yeah, I think, I like you, Chris. I loved this moment with Linda. It is the verbal middle finger to Peter and what he's put her through, and that is just played so nicely by Piper Parabo. And it's so good. You know, Peter comes in, looking all wonderful, seemingly concerned for her. And I love that she kind of just fobs him off. You know, she's kind of cuts him out and isn't really answering his questions. She doesn't kind of give him that inch. You know, my hair's not been washed. You know, the roommate from Bakersfield, all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And whether she intuitively knows or forewarned by the family lawyer, you know, he wants something from her. This isn't Peter necessarily being genuinely caring for her. It's not to say he doesn't, but he does also want something from her. And just the turn that she has, where, you know, she effectively says, you can keep the kids, the house. I'll see out the divorce in Reno with the hunky tennis pro at the local club. But this will not, I won't be in here forever. And then I will take your life apart, your life as a house of cards. That they will fall one by one. It's like, wow, she has claws. I just loved it. I thought it was superb. I think the other great thing here is that this is the first part of Peter's reveal. This is the horrible Peter. But we see a very different Peter. Again, the complexity of a single man holding multiple and potentially, seemingly, at least from a moral point of view, contradictory kind of positions, depending on who it's with. And it's just really, really interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, because he's played by Rory Kinnear and we like the actor and we liked him in the first series of Penny Dreadful, we kind of give him a little bit of leeway. But what he's done here with his wife is absolutely atrocious. And what he's trying to do here with her is get her to sign a document that says it's absolutely fine what you've done, moving in this blonde who's 20 years your junior into the house to take care of my kids and stick me in a sanatorium. Like, I love that she's just going, no, it's not going to go down that easy for you. And if it does go down that easy for you, I'm going to make sure it all falls apart as soon as I get the opportunity to do it. So watch your back. But this episode really does give us everything else about Peter, doesn't it? We now know his entire history. And we know a lot more about his opinions and his beliefs this episode, which I thought was quite surprising, really. Considering the way we've been seeing him from the first episode. We kept going, he's a member of the German Bund. Therefore he's a Nazi. So don't believe anything he says. We get to this dinner party.
Shame on us, eh?
I know. Well, kind of. But, we get to the German dinner party, the German Bund dinner party, and we have Herman Ackerman, played by Ethan Peck once again. Really good to see him in here, Spock, giving out some Nazi racism from the opposite side of the table. It's still very weird to see Spock talking like this, but it's interesting that he's pushing to align with Hitler, and get rid of any Jewish person that has any connection at all with the German Bund. He believes in the idea of Hitler, the purification of anybody connected to the Nazi party. And we have Peter on the opposite side of the table going, no, I believe that Germany is a great nation. I believe America is a great nation. And I believe we should all be peaceful and we should all live together and promote how great our nations are through peace. Ackerman is completely different to that. Ackerman is the character that we thought Peter Graft was almost. Ackerman is the person that wants to lead them down the path of the Nazis. Loved the moment when Elsa stood up to Ackerman on behalf of Peter Kraft, saying that, Hitler's not even German, he's Austrian, so what does he have to say about how great Germany is as a civilization, I love that, but the turn is great as well, when they're in the car home and Elsa says to Peter, the only reason I did that was because I was embarrassed for you. I was embarrassed that you weren't able to stand up for Germany, you weren't able to stand up to Ackerman at all. And he was talking down to you constantly. So I defended you, but he's right. He believes that everybody that isn't part of the German society should be exterminated for the betterment of German society. And you should believe the same, is what she's saying to Peter. So that's a really interesting, challenging moment between the two of them. And Peter does kind of keep his cool. He kind of says to her, well, I've gone through all of this. He finally reveals who he is. He's a member of the Krupp family, the well-known weapon makers who've been around for 400 years. Real life, that's exactly who they are. They have been weapon makers in Germany for 400 years. They have come in and out of prominence, but certainly during this time, coming up to World War II, they were the World War II profiteers, basically. They were the Tony Stark, let's use a Marvel analogy, the Tony Stark of World War II. They were making all the weapons to kill everybody in the world.
World War I.
And World War I.
Yeah, and going back quite a long way.
Years,
But
exactly as he says. But it's interesting that he holds that belief. He has left the family. He's no longer a member of the family. He's cut ties with it, moved to America, changed his name, and he's not willing to go back to it just for Elsa's push, just because Elsa thinks that's what makes a strong man.
Yeah.
He's not willing to go back and not willing to agree with the way that she said. He has his beliefs, and he believes that setting up the German Bund and showing how great German people are will allow them to integrate better into society, not distance themselves from the society, not align themselves with Hitler. So I think that's a really interesting idea. And I do wonder, we had the question earlier on, I'll put forward my idea on it, but I do wonder whether there is that moment whether Elsa thinks that she's backed the wrong horse here. Maybe she should have gone with Herman Ackerman. He seems like a much more logical choice to get into the Nazis. Or is she setting herself up, similar to Alex setting herself up in City Hall, as a dependable person, and possibly moving herself into a much more powerful position when Townsend is gone? Maybe she's setting herself up in the German Bund to have quite a powerful position, not connected to Dr. Kraft. Maybe she's setting herself up as a close ally to Ackerman, not necessarily as a partner, for when things fall apart for Kraft in the future.
Yeah, maybe. Absolutely. I definitely think there is the moment, I wrote it in my notes, where the look on Elsa's face at the dinner table is like, you know, oh, I should have hooked up with Ackerman. He's saying what I want Peter to say. I love that she couches it in terms of, you know, we need your strength. Where is your pride? You know, trying to bay on those kind of, in a sense, I would say masculine tropes, actually, about what, you know, oh, I must be strong, and you know, if my pride's affected, well, then I'm going to sort of turn on whoever's you know, question my pride and all this. You know, she's trying to touch those masculine buttons, and I like the fact that Peter doesn't rise to that bait from her, and I like the fact that, you know, in this scene you have, you know, that debate of what is German for Germans in the 1930s, with, you know, a Nazi government in power. You know, you hear Peter talking about the hundreds, thousands of German Jews who fought in World War One, all this kind of thing, you know, and you realize that it's from personal experience as a medic in World War One, seeing what his family's armaments did. That's why he's kind of renounced the family. He's taken this other name of Kraft. There's a really interesting kind of irony, I suppose, that Krupp subcontracted to the British armaments firm Vickers, and before the war, Vickers subcontracted to Krupp for a particular type of shell case and firing system. So that actually a lot of German soldiers had bullets pulled out of them which had Krupp, had the company name and motto on the bullet head of Krupp. Because the Brits were actually firing Krupp bullets because of the subcontraction. Because of the business relationship between Vickers and Krupp, and effectively, which is fascinating.
Effectively, why Krupp was known as a war profiteer rather than just an arms manufacturer. They were the people that were apparently kind of forcing some violence between countries. Well known for lobbying for battles to begin, partly because they were supplying the ammo to do so. So you can't supply ammo if there's no wars going on. So a really interesting background, because we didn't even think to look that up. You know, we didn't even think of looking up who are the most important people in Germany or in Essen in the 30s. Krupp would have sat at number one of that search in Google. If you check out who's the most infamous people in Essen at the time, Essen was almost known as, you know, a state unto itself. It was almost known as a place that people were supportive of Krupp because they were so powerful there. Everybody worked for them. The whole city was basically built by Krupp, so they were almost seen as its own state under Krupp. So you certainly would recognize this.
Definitely.
This family.
I think the other interesting thing was because it was also a family company. So effectively like a monarchy, the eldest brother, in fact, it wasn't even sibling or child, would become the next head of the board and the owner of the company. So that also maybe at this time it was Alfred Krupp and he supported the Nazis. So again, it's just that idea that maybe Peter's situation could be almost just due to brothers falling out as well, which is kind of interesting, I think. But certainly, I think, they were the mains weapons manufacturer in terms of panzers, bullets, and the Stukas, and arms supplier in Germany at that time. But it didn't end well for them, put it this way.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Elsa wanted Kraft to be the Krupp, the strong nationalist, and basically this is be careful what you wish for. Because right at this end, he's pushing. I see it a bit like Bruce Banner Hulk, again, bringing in a Marvel analogy. It's just like, I want you angry. I want you to be the Maestro. I want you to be the Hulk from Planet Hulk. And he's Dr. Banner going, no, you don't. No, you don't. I'm gonna be kind of gentle, peace loving. I care about and everyone's pushing for the Hulk. At the end of this, they get the Hulk and it kind of bites them in the ass.
Yeah.
Because the way I see it is that I thought that Elsa wanted Kraft to become Krupp, take back on the business, go back to the war, start the war, get all that going.
Maybe.
That's the way I saw, or potentially.
Yeah.
And I think her look of slight defeat as she sinks into the couch, as he completely goes against her, doesn't fire Maria. And notice, I think this is
gives her a raise. In fact, not just doesn't fire, it gives her a raise.
Yeah. And this is, I've pushed the button and the man to the edge. I've got my Incredible Hulk, and the Hulk didn't smash what I wanted to smash. It smashed me.
Yeah.
Or smash my plans. And I think that's the interesting part. So for me, I've been asking, again, I'm not going to put words in your mouth. I've been asking, what is going on with Kraft? How does this all fit in?
Yeah.
We got the answers, and I'm like, mwah, chef's kiss in terms of how they weave this story that I was like, this is good. This is a long ball. Like, this is, you're trying to hit a bullseye from 1,000 yards away.
And from a writing standpoint, I know we're on episode 8 of the show. Looking back on the season so far, I realize why this took so long for these characters to get to this point. I don't think I think they're writing the character the way you would write them. If it was somebody else, if it was Herman Ackerman that Elsa aligned with back at the dinner party in episode 4, I think by episode 5, he'd be marching the streets with the German Bund doing exactly what she wanted him to do. The reason it's taken so long to get to a point here with him standing up to her and going, I'm not going to do what you want to do. You've turned me back into Peter Krupp, who is the one that left his family and put it all behind me and went on a peaceful mission for Germans. I think that's makes a lot of sense for the character to not have been able to be pushed into a situation by Elsa for 8 episodes. And I think it makes logical sense for his character to have taken this long to come to the forefront of the story almost. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think if she'd chosen a different target, maybe it would have been the wrong target, but maybe it would have moved along that plan of hers in a different direction. So I'm intrigued to see what she's going to do next, I suppose, with Elsa and Peter. I certainly, again, if you think about the timeline that she's spent in this home with the 2 kids, I think she has been pushing it very hard for the last couple of days, expecting this guy's going to be a pushover. She's trying to get rid of his maid, expecting that his kids are going to move around the house just because that's what she wants. And I think he is going to stand up, and I think she may have to make brand new arrangements for what she's going to do next, because I think one of the wheels just fell off the plan right here.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that's interesting that the coyote is in that house, that there is, maybe this supernatural disruption to her plans because of Maria being there.
Absolutely.
Like, you see the fondness that Peter has for Maria.
Yeah.
He's not a Nazi. He doesn't profess to want to follow Hitler.
And in fact, I love his line. Just because I'm German, that means I'm German. It doesn't mean I have to follow Hitler. It's very specific in his head that that's my nationality. It doesn't mean I have to follow one person,
It's my nationality. It's not my ideology.
Exactly. So I thought this was really good. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm right with you. I want to see where this goes in the next episode, and hats off to the writing team. Like they, as you said, I now understand why it has taken so long to get to this point, and it's paid off. If this had have been, he turned bad and it was all done, and it was like, well, yeah, that would have been, and it wouldn't have been the payoff I wanted. Yeah. This is the payoff that makes sense for the narrative beats we've got.
It feels like as soon as he realizes he's being pushed in a direction that he doesn't want to go, he digs his heels in and goes, hang on a second. You know, you're not manipulating me anymore. You're not whispering in my ear, telling me what you may be interested in me doing. You're telling me how you want me to be. Nope. My family weren't able to do that. You're definitely not able to do that. So a really interesting one for the main beats of the episode. A couple of other things we haven't talked about in the episode, that I think are important just to call out here, I suppose. We do have just one scene with Mateo and Rio, where Rio effectively says to Mateo that the reason why Tiago is the one that she threw under the bus for the killing of Officer Riley is because Mateo is supposed to be the new leader of the Pachucos. So where does that leave Flyrico?
Well, not the leader, and we know
how's he going to take that? He's
not going to take that well.
Pushed to kill Flyrico to take over. Is there going to be some altercation between the two of them, or is Flyrico just going to step back and allow Mateo to step over, and the two of them run from behind the scenes, maybe, or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I want to see more of Mateo. Like, he had that absolute pivotal moment where he runs from his brother and everything that happened with Riley and so on. And it seems like he's obviously not been under house arrest, but it just feels like he's been under house arrest in the oil fields with Rio, although Flyrico's not there. So, I like the fact that...
like he goes outside and sees two people coming towards him and runs back inside. So it feels like he's trying to stay completely below the radar there, at least.
Yeah, I mean...
Isn't he?
I think so. I think it's obviously still playing out in quite a short time period, so that makes sense. But, and he has been into town because he spoke with Josefina. He's seen his mum. And you've got the sense that he is conflicted. He's unsure whether Rio's speech to him, about, that, he is the person to give the Pachucos, the Mexicans, hope, desire, strength, to walk, she says, we will walk in blood to your throne, that he's going to be this revolutionary, of some description. I don't know whether has he bought that, because she has given that speech a bit before when she was sizing him up for the suit, the suit, not for the bedroom.
Still hasn't got a suit, actually.
And he, I think I want to just see Mateo out of that situation, because I don't think it's good for him. It's obviously not good for him. But
look at Mama Jars. I'd like to see Mateo have other friends.
I thought it would be really interesting to see him go to Tiago. Or is he now, because of that speech, going to be full blown, I'm the Inca god, or I'm the Aztec god, I should say, you're all going to die for me, and have this kind of fight out with Rico. I feel they need to just sort of reconnect back in with that. Certainly now that Diego has been put up as the patsy, to take the fall for everything. I think, because I feel Mateo still is going to be the big thing that happens here, that's going to sort of explode everything.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I think we may lose a member of the Vega family permanently. Not like Zombie Bro, Ralph, still sitting at home listening to baseball. I think we may lose Mateo of everybody that's in the family.
So, very quick question, because I know we're wrapping up, right? But very, very quick question. I've never watched To Fruition, Penny Dreadful.
Yes, that's right.
I've never got through to a season finale, to the kind of how it crescendos.
The season 3 finale, yeah.
Should I expect will we get a supernatural type kind of all guns blazing showdown, or so we've 2 hours left.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm trying to piece in my head where they go, because I don't know if they will set up a season 2, like a huge amount for season 2. If they may leave a couple of threads like, hey, we may explore this later. But I'm just wondering, like, are all the players on the chessboard going to meet on a battlefield or a virtual battlefield in one go?
I think the characters in Penny Dreadful season 1, season 2 and season 3 all knew by this stage of the season where they were aiming for, what their battlefield was going to be. And I don't think any of the characters here right now knows that their battlefield is all the versions of Magda. So I don't see a big battle at the end of this season, but I will say every season of the previous 3 all ended with a massive battle with either supernatural creatures or other characters at the end, in the final episode of each of the 3 seasons. So it's entirely possible that the next episode will set up, now that Maria is on the trail of Magda, potentially next episode is the setting up episode where she's sharing with all the other people that are interacting with the Magdas, and getting them all together as a group versus the Magdas in one big supernatural showdown at the end of the season. And then there's a reveal of what could be in season 2, but a close down of season 1 and end to season 1 with a reveal of what season 2 could be. But I'm just not too sure if that's the way the season is going.
I think, just coming to your question, Chris, I think that some will feature on some kind of battlefield as such, and will do battle. And I think some others are in place to, I think, really to come to fruition in another season. It feels reminiscent of season 1 in that I think we will get a conclusion to it, and I think it will be around Tiago and the whole Hazlitt case that
right.
In some respect, there will be some conclusion to that, to the season, but there will be an awful lot of other threads that are in place, and even ones that maybe do come to an end. Like I'm half expecting that something will happen with Councillor Townsend being outed effectively.
Yeah,
that
or Councilwoman Beck. Remember the actual plan for the motorway in LA. That motorway's there, so kind of gives me the indication that Councilwoman Beck, her opposition to Townsend, may not
survive,
and she may not survive the series because, well, how does it get there? If she says over my dead body that motorway's getting built, well, that's likely that may happen by the end of the season.
But I think that things will play out for sure. I think the whole focus must come to the Vegas ultimately. And I think we will see. Maria to me she is the lady with the big battle. I mean, I was even just thinking about it with Mateo there. He actually is increasingly almost feeling like the Josh Hartnett character, actually, of Ethan Chandler of the original season 1 Penny Dreadful, where he was there, but things played out around him. He was that observer, and I feel that maybe not in that same way, but that he's been peripheral enough, even though he's had a significant impact. With I don't know, certainly the last half he's been more peripheral to me, Mateo.
Once the murder
happened,
and he was chased down by
and
Tiago.
I'm just wondering, will somehow he get imbued because of the spirituality of Maria, and she can call on Santa Muerta? Will something happen where he can call on the Aztec gods that Rio keeps talking to him about?
Maybe.
Or Magda. He calls on Magda.
Or Magda, yeah.
Maybe.
So, yeah, I know what you mean, but some of the things will play out.
I don't know if all the characters are aligned enough. Like, not only one or two for a supernatural battle.
Right.
I think only Maria is available for, like, if I was to, again, I'm not a writer, but if it was like the next episode needs to make people aware of the more supernatural craziness that is going on, or the plan, so that it's set up in the final episode. It allows that battle to take place.
Yeah.
But with at least Tiago there, like, who is in theory one of our main characters. He needs to know. It's unless they are, that works, and I think that's what I would do. But then the other question is that they go for another option, which is the battle happens just with Maria at the end, but everyone else and it's resolved, and everyone else just thinks that the story, they stopped the Nazis and everything's good. So everyone thinks that there's one story happening and they solve that thing, and actually this big supernatural battle's happening underneath, and it's just Maria who battles it.
That's entirely possible. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just, it's interesting, but 2 hours less. It's definitely, I'm curious how they're going to get there.
But as we often say on the show, a movie is on average about 2 hours, and they accomplish quite a lot in that time. And after this episode, I'm expecting a lot is going to be accomplished in those last 2 episodes. But I'm really interested to see how it rolls out into the final moment. Interesting that you mentioned Ethan, John, because from the first Penny Dreadful, because my note is slightly about Ethan Chandler and Vanessa from the original Penny Dreadful. I just thought it was intriguing, and it's more for Penny Dreadful fans, people that watched the first 3 seasons, just that moment between Kurt and Townsend where they're having a dance with Patti Lupone in the room singing the song, and the conversation between Kurt and Townsend is telling Kurt that he wants Kurt to kill someone, and Kurt says, "You'll lose your soul if you do that." He doesn't want him to do it. "You won't be the man I love anymore." It feels like it's a very similar parallel to a discussion that was had between Ethan and Vanessa, the 2 main characters really of the original Penny Dreadful, when they were in the house of the cut wife, a character played by Patti Lupone. They had the conversation. Vanessa was saying that she wanted to kill someone who'd wronged her in the past, and Ethan was the hired gunslinger. He was a person who'd killed many, many men over his life, and he was saying to her, "If you do this, you lose your soul. From now on, you will see the darkness within yourself and you'll lose your soul." I just thought it was really interesting that the very similar conversation is happening with Townsend, who is, remember, a pretty despicable person himself.
Yeah.
He's very much not like our Eva Green Vanessa, who was a person that we all loved. She did have that twist in the character at that point when she did murder the person after Ethan told her not to. She'd had that twist in her soul, basically, from that point onwards. But I liked that the conversation was happening in the presence of Patti Lupone. So I thought it was
bets that maybe Townsend takes it upon himself to kind of chuck a bit of water down on the floor. Mm-hmm. Slip, crack a head open.
Maybe, or a letter opener the next time she challenges him in the office, is what I was wondering. Yeah, I do think he's asked now twice to take out Beck and has been told twice no. Will his reputation be on the line in the next episode?
But the only way we can get to the next episode and find out what and if will happen, I think is about time, gentlemen, we move on to our closing thoughts for this episode. So, John, do you have any closing notes on this episode?
Yeah, it's just quickly to build on the stuff I was searching about Krupp, the armaments company, which the thing is kind of quite interesting, is that basically the company went to Nuremberg after the main trial of the head Nazis. But the companies that colluded with the Nazis were also taken to Nuremberg and effectively disbanded. And Krupp, Alfred got 12 years, along with the co-defendants, which were basically the board, because they were found guilty of plunder, because Hitler allowed them to take over any of the industries in the occupied nations for the German war effort. So they took over Skoda in Czechoslovakia, and also because, fairly apparently, they used slave labor in factories that they set up to supply their main factory in Essen, both prisoners of war, civilians from occupied countries, such as Slavic ethnic group from the east, but also Jews. So they actually, Krupp representatives went to concentration camps to select laborers for these. So
one of their major centers was right beside Auschwitz.
Yeah. So all in all, it was a fairly cozy arrangement between Krupp and the Nazis, which the company paid a price for. I mean, even to the extent that Hitler decreed what was known as the Lex Krupp, which authorized the transfer of all of his mother's shares to him, so that he had the full entitlement to the Krupp country, and effectively dispossessing all his brothers and sisters of any, and that was all reversed. And I think the Krupp was dismantled and then started back up again. So a bit like Volkswagen must have been done as well, or something like that. So yeah, kind of interesting little sort of rabbit hole you go down.
Absolutely.
When, and now what? They make, lifts and escalators.
And other mechanical,
so
crazy engineering levels. Stuff.
So they were banned from the company was banned from being able to produce weapons after World War II.
Yeah, and it just adds that extra insight into what decision that Peter has made, considering how powerful his family were in Germany, to turn his back on them and leave the country basically after the First World War. Is the other thing we find out in this episode. That's pretty much as soon as the war was over, he left Germany and moved to America because of the horrors that he saw his family inflict in there. So yeah, it's really, really interesting knowing their history.
I will just quickly say, I thought it was made up, and then I quickly Googled and then went, oh my God. And as I was just going down the rabbit, as you said, John, the rabbit hole of Wikipedia entries, going, no way. And then getting to finally the history, seeing they're still around.
Yeah.
What? Anywho.
I know, but that's the thing with this show. You know, I did see a conversation on one of the Facebook groups the other day about the two teams that are mentioned on the radio, and Rel is listening to the radio, the two baseball teams that he's listening to. And the person was questioning because one of the teams that he's listening to, the Padres, weren't in Major League Baseball until the 50s. Well, of course, this being Penny Dreadful, he was listening to a completely different league of baseball that did exist in the 30s and had the two teams existing in there. It was a much smaller league that he was listening to on the radio, because that's the kind of detail they go into to make sure everything fits with the time period. Maybe a year or two out, but you know, not much, but certainly not 20 or 30 years out. And they're very accurate in the things they want to include in this show. So great work in there. Overall, gentlemen, what did you think of the episode? John, do you want to give us a quick idea of what you thought of the episode overall?
Yeah, I really like this. 4.5 washing bowl dreams from hell out of 5. I really like this, from the whole horror montage with Frank in the house with Maria and the two T's. I thought was really, really good. Yeah, Tom and Trevor.
Shout out to the Delightfully Dreadful podcast on that one, John. Well
exactly. I loved the moment between Tom and Maria burying Friar Tuck. I just thought that was really good. I liked the massive hug that he gives to Maria. And I think just like thinking back of how Maria was treated by her own family last week when she cooked all that lovely food, and then at least having that moment with Josefina, I thought was really good. I like the fact that Magda was really kind of a little bit up and down in this episode. She didn't seem to have really worked her magic with Peter. She, you know, didn't manage to get Maria fired. And then there was the surprising thing with Alex and Lewis at the City Hall. But yeah, I loved all of these different threads this week. I thought it was really good, and it was great to get some more, to get those questions answered around the crafts, or as we should say, the Krupps.
Exactly. Chris, what's your overall thoughts on the episode?
I loved it. This was something I'd been crying out for. Not crying out for. I'm being hyperbolic here. It was something I was so curious about for so long, because I wanted to know what the backstory was. And I feel they got it to me, and they gave it to me in such a way that I'm now sitting back and going, yeah, no, this makes sense. Your story made sense, and the length of time your story made sense to get to the characters of where they wanted to be, or where you wanted them to be at this case.
Yeah.
Because I think, Derek, you said it right. If this had been another character, you could have done this in episode 4.
Yeah.
And it would have been done. If they had have stopped this character, revealed it, and then he suddenly went to the dark side, I'd be like, no, that doesn't ring true. You built this too wrong. You built this the wrong way. So,
and in fairness, just because I don't think I said it when we were discussing the episode, in fairness, it is really important that is one of the characters. Peter Kraft is really important that he says no, because right back to the first episode, Magda says she will whisper in the ears of men and men will do what they do because they're allowed to do it. She believes that in all men is a dark heart. And Peter's character effectively is saying, I'm not going to do what you want me to do. So it's really important that he doesn't do what she says because it displaces her belief that all men are evil effectively.
Yeah.
So.
No, exactly. And I think that's the core. They're showing the vision for this show that I didn't see before. They're giving me like the points I couldn't connect. And they're starting to connect them. And that's the sign of a good series that I'm like, I just like, amazing. Give me the next episode.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the formatting of the release schedule, not dropping this all live, not throwing it somewhere, piecemealing it each week is perfect.
Absolutely.
Derek, what did you think of the end of this episode?
Yeah, I'll just agree with you guys. This is probably my favorite episode of the season so far. I think it just nailing the horror with Frank, has now become one of my favorite characters on TV this year. I think it's, every time I see him, I'm just waiting to see what he's going to do. And he's Magda, and there's all the other Magdas, and you don't have any idea what they're going to do next and what their manipulations are going to lead to. But, I think this episode answered loads of questions and gave us lots of really interesting stuff to go into the last 2 episodes of the season. So yeah, definitely one of my favorite episodes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's get on to some feedback, gentlemen. Penny for your thoughts, dear listeners. If you want to send in any feedback to us on any of the episodes that we've covered or any of the shows that we've covered, you can email us to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com or come over to our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/tvpodcastindustries. And the one we hardly ever mention, come over to Twitter to tvpodindustries over there. The reason I'm mentioning that is because most of our feedback has come from Twitter this week. Our wonderful friend Anna, which is Magda666 on Twitter, has finally caught up on Penny Dreadful. She recently watched all 3 seasons of the original Penny Dreadful. I knew she was going to love it. We know Anna for a couple of years now, and she loves this type of thing, but I think she was a bit concerned she wasn't going to like it. She fell in love with the first 3 seasons and is now completely caught up with Penny Dreadful. I think she only started watching this season of Penny Dreadful about 2 weeks ago. So she wanted to share her thoughts about this season of Penny Dreadful so far. John, do you want to give us your thoughts?
Yeah, Anna's thoughts on this season of City of Angels. She goes, this whole show that for me started tepidly has branched into a show with so many connections to the present world situation. I'm growing fonder of it, and I'm looking forward to seeing where it will lead. It went from an American noir movie meets Mexican novella to an actually deep and interesting show. That still is bold to embrace the genres I mentioned. Truly a step forward. This episode has absolutely boosted my love for Adriana Barraza and Lynn Shay. They have been working their characters up since episode 1, and it's a pleasure to see them deliver their roles. P.S. Also, the progression of the Kraft family is intriguing. It's an absolute joy they have Rory Kinnear back to play a character that is clearly walking a reverse path to the one of the creature. It's twisted and I'm loving it. Patti Lupone's return is the promise of a plot that will thicken, immensely satisfying. Last but not least, thank you, Derek, for being a brilliant podcaster and mentioning the monkey's paw effect, which is actually one of my favorite short stories of all time. You nerd. Also, John has my deepest sympathy in his ferocious defense of the hamsters, guinea pigs, rats, and gerbils. By the way, it was a hamster. R.I.P. Friar Tuck.
Brilliant.
Indeed, it was a hamster.
Yes, it was.
Completely agree. I was giving all the different rodents, so just so that anyone could sort of it was kind of like one of the tests where you just put the cross on whichever one you think is the right answer. But certainly, yeah, a hamster all the way all the way into the ground, I suppose.
Well, yes, this
for
week.
Friar Tuck.
I did look at my notes as you heard towards the end of the episode. I did look at my notes and realized I was wrong throughout the episode. So yes, you're right, Anna. Definitely. Yeah, as you say, Lynch has been fantastic this season, and Adriana Barraza is just wonderful. I hope she gets an Emmy nomination for her work on this season, because she has been essential throughout this show. Really, really good to see her. Thanks so much for your thoughts, Anna.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much, Anna. Really good to hear your thoughts on this, and I'm really glad you're enjoying City of Angels.
Absolutely, yes, and I do love to nerd out as well. So if I can slip in an old sci-fi trope or an old fantasy trope in an episode, I'm delighted. So the monkey paw, it's always a good one. Chris, do you want to take the other piece of feedback from Twitter?
Yes, we also had feedback from Will B over on Twitter, who actually got back to us last week after we aired our episode to point out a small mistake I may have made when I said that poor Friar Tuck was the first death that potentially Magda had done. I had blotted out, I think we had all blocked out the assumed husband of Elsa, who she killed,
with a knife,
and had a good time on.
Yeah. Who she murdered and buried. We were concerned that she'd killed a guinea pig or a hamster, and she'd murdered her a fake husband, an actual human who she brought home from a bar and murdered. And we're like, oh yeah, maybe that is the first time that Magda's killed someone. Oh no, it's not. It's
no.
Friar Tuck the hamster was more adorable than
so
Mr.
that's
Branson.
exactly it.
But we didn't see fake Mr. Branson being murdered, so maybe she convinced a neighbor to do it.
Yeah. There
I'm
be
sorry.
anything.
I'm sorry, Will. You're absolutely right. Yeah, we should have gotten that. I did send it around to the guys as soon as you sent it to us on Twitter, and all of us are going, "Oh, what are we thinking?"
I suspect Frank just morphed out of her stomach and T2'd his hand into a spike, and so it just went straight in.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, maybe that was it. Yeah. But that's still Magda. So
that's true.
But thank you so much for that feedback, Will. And keep spotting these, please. Hopefully we don't have that many. Regarding feedback on this episode, Will said, couple of notes. Dr. Kraft won this episode, hands down, sticking to his moral compass.
Nice.
Finally, fuck Frank. That is all.
I totally agree.
Yep.
You know, if
on all points.
You know, the actor who plays him, absolutely wonderful actor, but if I saw Frank coming into my house, I would run a mile after seeing what he's doing in this show.
I'd probably just chop
any
myself
child
into
coming
bits.
into your house, I run a mile.
Well, that's what are you doing here?
Yeah, seriously, if any child comes into your house that you don't know, that's a bit weird.
That's very true.
You kind of go, are you dead? No. Well, why are you in my house?
Well, no, usually, Chris, just the etiquette usually is, can I help you find your parents? Not scream at them and run away, because that makes children afraid.
Ask, are they dead first? If they say yes, then you've got a problem. If they say no, second question can be, okay, where are your parents? If they go, they're dead, then you scream and run.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Wilby. Certainly, I love the whole Dr. Kraft, his moral compass with respect to his family business, yet towards, I suppose, his soon-to-be ex-wife, Linda, he doesn't really display much in the way of a moral compass. I really like just that contrast of Dr. Kraft. He certainly wins this episode hands down.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Thanks so much, Will, and thanks so much, Anna, for your feedback over on Twitter. Come follow us on Twitter. We'll talk back to you and everything. It's awesome. Our final piece of feedback comes in from Steve Brown once again, and this week's voicemail.
Okay, that was scary. I mean, there was some tense moments in this one. Hey guys, this is Steve. This is for Hide and Seek, episode 8. I just finished watching it, for the first time. I may watch it again in the morning if I have, time, but I wanted to send this out as I just finished the episode because it was so good. And I think, if I could pick 3 things real quick, we're seeing some more of Dr. Kraft, and I really like this, how they're taking this character here, because he basically told Elsa, right? He told her, no, I'm not going to be controlled by any woman, even you. The old maid's not controlling me. You're not controlling me. I'm controlling me. Really like that. Like where they're taking this character. I think that was a great turn with Alex. I didn't see that coming, that she was going to appeal to Lewis as a Jewish person, and that speaking in Yiddish. And wow, the reveal that Tiago carries a backup on his ankle, that was just great. As soon as he pulled his pant leg up and I saw that holster, I was like, Tiago carries a backup? That's great. So I thought that was really, really cool. And, just the whole episode was really good. There was a lot of good stuff in this, really, kind of moved the story forward. We're starting to see the connections all come together, and, I'm excited for the next two. And, yeah, so, just a really good episode. And, the only thing that bothers me, I will give a little criticism. This is just to Showtime. Anytime when you have the closed captioning on, sometimes the closed captioning covers over when they subtitle the characters like speaking in Spanish. And so like there'll be the translation, and over the top of the translation is the closed captioning saying in Spanish, but you can't read what it's saying behind it. Just kind of bugs me. Anyway, can't wait to hear what you guys thought. Talk to you later.
Mad Steve, that is so annoying. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, Steve. That's happened on multiple shows.
Yeah.
And it's one of those, no, we get it, but no, we can't see it. Oh.
It's like the subtitles shouldn't read the words in Spanish if you're translating them, right? Just leave that out. Thanks so much for your voicemail, Steve. Yeah, I totally agree with you. It's been a really good episode and some nice scary moments in there too.
Yeah, thanks so much, Steve. Yeah, I thought the ankle holster was very good with for Tiago.
Yeah.
And whether Alex's appeal to Lewis is maybe as genuine as it first looks, I don't know. Or whether the ulterior motive is, as you say, to actually now replace Townsend with someone else. He's maybe becoming even too much of a liability for Alex Malone.
Yeah. I suppose just in my head, all I keep thinking is not only is she not a Jewish woman whose parents died in this attack on Vienna, she's not even human. She's Magda, so the appeal can't be real, basically. So nothing about it can be. But it's a good way to get into the pocket of the LAPD, I suppose, or get them in her pocket, whichever way, whoever's got the pockets. Thanks so much, Steve. Big congratulations to Steve and his co-host Mark Kirkman. They are coming up on their 100th episode of their pop culture podcast over on Panels to Pixels.
Excellent stuff.
I think that's coming up in about 2 weeks' time. So congratulations to you guys over on Panels to Pixels. Keep sending in your voicemails, Steve. We love hearing them.
Yes, thank you so much, and congratulations. When you hit 400, come to us.
When you hit 500, we're getting that close. We're only a couple episodes away from that as well. 2 episodes, I think. 3 episodes.
I know. We're so old.
It's awesome. Final business of the day. Let's get down to the pub and get a drink, boys and girls.
Oh my God, yes, I could do with a cider. It is sweltering in this podcast room.
Yes. Well, yes, it's been a very long night in the Kraft family home. And dare I say it, like Councilman Townsend, a quick early whiskey in the morning might be required for calming the nerves. So this week's pub quiz question on the Penny Dreadful pub quiz. Please remember to send your answers to the questions through to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com, where we will actually read them out on our review and roundup episode of the full Penny Dreadful City of Angels series. You can send them in week out as you hear them, or all at once. The decision is yours on that one. Just for episode 8, Hide and Seek. The question is, what does Maria cook up for Trevor and Tommy as a treat as they listen to the radio?
That's a pretty good question. I like that. Yeah.
Yes.
And as John mentioned, it'll be on our 501st episode of the podcast, you'll have a little bit of extra time after we do the final episode of our Penny Dreadful podcast to send in all of your answers to the pub quiz. All the questions are available over on our website at tvpodcastindustries.com, or if you listen to the episodes that are available around this time in each episode.
We will soon need to also announce what prizes we will be giving to the winner of the pub quiz. So yes.
Shh! It's a secret.
No, it's not. We haven't
this time actually. Yeah.
Well, it will be Penny Dreadful City of Angels memorabilia, but we haven't actually
we forgot to mention this.
Picked anything out yet.
Yeah. Okay. So over on show.com, over on the official Showtime website, they have opened their Penny Dreadful City of Angels store, and it has lots of drink related items branded with things like the Crimson Club, branded with Penny Dreadful City of Angels, all looking very cool. Some very interesting stuff on there. We will definitely get some good prizes this time. Sometimes these shops don't open until well after the show's finished and we have no idea what we're buying, but this time we've seen 2 or 3 really good items to pick up for the Penny Dreadful prizes for the pub quiz. That's quite difficult to say.
So just a quick recap of the question. What does Maria cook up for Trevor and Tommy as a treat as they listen to the radio with, the Blackchapel show?
Yes, that does sound really cool. Thanks so much for that, John. Thank you so much, everybody else, for joining us for this episode. It's been wonderful being with you, our fellow Penny faithful. Stay subscribed to the podcast over on tvpodcastindustries.com. And why not? If you enjoy what you hear, why not share it with your friends? Because sharing the podcast is sharing the love.
Yes, but if you want to share more than love, don't forget you can head on over to patreon.com/tvpodcastindustries where you can throw us $1. Help us keep the lights on, the mics running, and everything in between.
Yes, and remember you get access to our Captain America Winter Soldier podcast, which we just released last week. So that's there waiting and available to you.
Yes, and we'll have some more. I believe we have Wonder Woman coming up in a couple of weeks.
Wonder Woman.
Well, Wonder Woman sadly got pushed back to October now, Wonder Woman 2.
Not so Wonder Woman.
So we are going to record our thoughts on Wonder Woman, the original movie, before Wonder Woman 1984 comes out in October. But it's probably going to be on our main feed for everybody by that stage, yeah.
Yes. But of course, if you'd like to just even support us with anything you can, we always are appreciative. It helps keep the lights on and the mics running. We'll be back next week with Penny Dreadful City of Angels episode 9, Sing, 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 which comes out on June 21st. Yes.
That's right, yes. And one final plug. Go check out Strange Indeed this week for my chat with Rima Jo about Black Mirror Season 2, Episode 1.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you haven't had enough of Derek's voice, well, good luck to you. I have, so goodbye for now.
Bye, people. Chris.
And hopefully Sing, Sing, Sing will mean that Chris will come well prepared with a list of songs to belt out and destroy eardrums all across the podcast world.
Well, yeah, you actually thought you'd get an episode without a German accent, but next episode you get German accent and singing. Ja, wunderbar.
I'm blaming you for that one, John. Say goodbye. Let's go.
Yeah, rightio. Thank you so much, Penny Faithful and Dreadfuls, for listening in. As always, it is a pleasure speaking with you. And just remember, keep watching, keep listening, and keep praying at the Blackchapel.
Nice.
Bye.
I always like when you end an episode with rightio, John. Bye.
Radio.
I know. I don't know why.
Cheerio.
Cheerio.
What a bye, Joe.
Ta-ta for now.
Well, bye.